He thought his badge made him untouchable, until the Bodycam spoke. Elk Creek at night. Red and blue lights tore through the darkness. A hand hovered over a holster, and a cold voice cut the silence before a flashlight beam hid the face of a 52-year-old black woman. Let's see who we've got tonight. Just hours later, two angles, one from Naomi Brooks's phone, the other from Sergeant Calloway's Bodycam, were played inside a courtroom. A manila envelope rested quietly on the judge's bench. An unexpected witness stepped out from the precinct. Then, recordings never filed suddenly surfaced, exposing a pattern of abuse hidden behind the word procedure and silenced with, "Do it fast, leave no trace." When his camera betrayed the badge he thought untouchable, the entire system began to shake. Why had a badge become a shield for misconduct? What finally forced the truth to speak? And could justice heal wounds that had burned for years? Or would it demand something harsher, something more complicated to give? Forgiveness? This wasn't just a lawsuit. It was a reckoning on human dignity, on the fight against racial discrimination, and on what actual authority really means. Not stitched into a patch of metal, but proven in how we use power with those most vulnerable. Stay with us, and you'll see it unfold. It was past 11 p.m. The Elk Creek Highway outside Riverton lay buried in thick darkness, broken only by scattered pools of yellow from tired old streetlights, like fading memories of long nights on distant patrols. The road was dry, no rain, just winter wind sliding through bare branches, whispering like the breath of the night. It felt like a place where past and present collided. Lieutenant Colonel Naomi Brooks gripped the wheel of her black government SUV, steady and deliberate. At 52, with 2 deployments in frontline logistics, she knew every decision could mean life or death. Yet beneath that discipline lingered the ache of comrades lost, brothers and sisters she could never forget. And tonight, driving home from a long meeting at Cedar Ridge Joint Base, 2 hours away, she wondered if all that military order could shield her from the injustices of everyday life. She lowered the window an inch. Cold air rushed in, chasing off drowsiness. Naomi never hurried. The army had drilled into her that each step must be firm, each action precise. Still, deep inside, she knew that calm might be nothing more than armor against the sting of prejudice she'd faced in distant barracks. The tires hummed steadily, and she hummed with them, a faint melody carrying her through the dark. Everything seemed at peace, until blue and red lights suddenly ripped across her windshield, a flash that turned the night into chaos. In the mirror, a patrol car surged out of the shadows. Its lights spun like blades of fire, sharp and commanding. Naomi's heart didn't leap in fear. Combat had trained her too well for that. But it beat harder with a different tension, the clash between obedience and the old injustice of being singled out for the color of her skin. She clicked her signal, slowed, and eased onto the shoulder. Muscle memory, discipline. The patrol car door slammed. A tall figure stepped into the yellow glow of the street lamp, heavy boots striking the pavement. Sergeant Brent Calloway, 15 years on the force, a territorial wolf used to throwing his weight around. His flashlight beam cut straight into Naomi's face, blinding, oppressive, like a scene where light itself symbolized power abused. His other hand rested on the holster of his gun. Naomi's mind flickered to a fellow black soldier shot by mistake. Should she start recording now, or comply and pray this didn't escalate? "License and registration," he barked, rough voice edged with mockery. More like, "License and registration," flat and dismissive. Naomi kept her hands visible, voice even though her pulse surged. "Officer, may I ask why I've been stopped?" His eyes narrowed. His tone turned cutting. "You were swervin'. No signal. Looks like you're under the influence. The words hung in the cold night. Naomi steadied herself, fighting the pull of anger. I wasn't, she said calmly, retrieving her documents with deliberate care. Handing them over, she added, This is a government vehicle. I'm a federal employee. Calloway scanned her ID, lip curling slightly. Federal or not, you're not above the law. Naomi didn't answer. Silence could be strength or surrender. She didn't know which. Then his voice hardened. Step out of the vehicle. She tilted her head, still calm. With respect. On what grounds? I've complied fully, and I haven't been drinking. You refuse in a lawful order, he pressed, stepping closer, his hand hovering near his weapon. The shadow he cast stretched long and heavy across the pavement. Number, I'm asking for a reasonable explanation, she replied. Then, drawing her line, she raised her phone. Her thumb tapped record. For clarity, she said, voice steady. I'm filming this entire encounter. The glow of her screen lit Calloway's eyes. For a split second, hesitation cracked his confidence. But then he jerked his chin. Out. Now. Naomi stepped out. Her posture was straight, controlled, like on a parade ground. No defiance, but no fear. Inside, though, the old question burned. Was this really about her driving, or her skin? The beam of his flashlight seared across her again, forcing her down a strip of light beneath the lamp. She walked with measured steps, exact and steady. In the end, Calloway wrote her a citation. Failure to maintain lane. His pen scratched across the ticket like a final stroke of an unfair ritual. Naomi folded the paper neatly. No words. She returned to her vehicle, but inside her chest, anger rolled like an undertow. This wasn't a ticket. This was a test of her faith in the system she had served. The SUV's engine rumbled, and she drove off into the long highway, headlights cutting through the night. Behind her, Calloway climbed back into his patrol car, satisfied, as if he'd just wrapped another routine stop. What he didn't know was that Naomi's phone had captured everything, and that video was already the first crack in the armor he believed was unbreakable. Naomi kept her eyes on the road, but something inside her had shifted. This wouldn't just end as a citation. This would be a test of accountability, and within hours, a thin envelope would surface in a place Sergeant Calloway least expected. That thin envelope appeared the next morning on the desk of a legal aide at Cedar Ridge Joint Base, where Naomi Brooks was finishing her end-of-day report. But the story had already begun the moment she left the flashing lights of Elk Creek Highway, like a smooth cut from the chaos of the night road to the quiet glow of an office where past and present collided inside her mind. Driving home that night, Naomi kept her SUV steady, eyes locked on the dark stretch ahead. Yet every detail of the stop replayed in her head like slow-motion film. The harsh beam of the flashlight slashing across her face, the officer's hand resting on his gun like a silent threat, the clipped commands echoing like patrol orders from another battlefield. What struck her most was the way she had been reduced to an object to be checked, not a woman with a name, a rank, and decades of service. Discipline demanded compliance, but memory whispered of the prejudice she'd endured in distant barracks. Was her calm strength, or just armor covering the fear of reliving it again? She knew if she didn't preserve evidence, it would all vanish like smoke, word against word. Only images could carry the truth. That's why, before reaching base, Naomi had already copied the phone recording onto an encrypted drive, hands steady, following the habit of a soldier who never leaves critical proof in a single vulnerable place. Morning light washed through her office windows, pale and wintry, reminding her of mornings after missions. She wore her uniform crisp, collar straight, nameplate catching the desk lamp. A logistics file lay open, but she wasn't reading. Instead, she opened a folder labeled Incident, Elk Creek, and began writing her report in military form. Time, location, sequence, actions taken, potential threats. Her pen pressed hard against the page. Was her compliance last night truly discipline, or submission to abuse of power? Would silence protect young recruits later, or only betray them? A knock at the door. Warrant Officer Malik Green, her trusted aide of 10 years, stepped in. His face was tight, his voice low. "Ma'am, I've seen the video." His hand gripped a stack of papers, knuckles white with anger. Naomi looked up, steady eyes betraying little. "What do you think?" she asked, tone even, like assessing a battlefield report. It's clear there was no cause for the stop. And his hand, Malik's voice dropped further, never left his weapon. If it hadn't been you, ma'am, this could have gone south. His respect for her was deep, but the worry in his eyes was heavier still. Would the system protect someone like her? Naomi gave a firm nod. Resolve flickered in her gaze. "I've contacted JAG and the Inspector General. Both will have this report today." She paused, meeting his eyes. He hesitated. "Are you sure you want to push this? It's gonna blow up." "Malik," she said gently but firmly, "this isn't just about me. Every time we let it slide, we teach them it's normal." Her mind flashed to younger soldiers in the barracks, still believing that rank or insignia could shield them from injustice. Then a sharper memory. Standing at a graveside in Missouri, wind stinging her face, remembering a black comrade lost to silence. She knew the truth. Nothing could shield you if those with power refused to respect its limits. The report complete, Naomi signed with a steady hand, attached the video files, and sent them to 3 addresses: JAG, the Inspector General, and her legal advisor, Attorney Asha Patel. No long message, just one line. For official action, time sensitive. That afternoon, miles away at the Riverton precinct, Brent Calloway sat in the break room with coffee in hand, boasting to a younger officer about the stop. "She flashed her federal ID like I was supposed to bow. I gave her the full roadside test." Textbook. Officer Jenna Park raised her brows, unease plain in her eyes. "What's her name?" "Brooks. Naomi Brooks." Jenna paused, then said slowly, "Do you realize who she is?" Logistics Lieutenant Colonel at Cedar Ridge, 2 overseas tours. She even lectured at the State Police Academy. People respect her. Calloway forced a laugh, but the corner of his mouth twitched, a small crack in his confidence. Her words cut like a scratch across his polished armor, stirring the memory of other abuses he'd buried. What he didn't know was that even then, Naomi's email was already in the inboxes of people with absolute authority to act. That evening, Naomi stayed late at her desk. Outside the window, street lamps stretched long shadows of trees across the ground, like ghosts from her military past. On her desk lay a thin envelope, paperwork that would trigger a strict legal process she knew could not be undone. Her hand rested on it, fingers tracing the edge, weighing the cost of justice. No thrill of anticipation, only a quiet resolve. This was discipline, not guided by emotion, but by principle. Yet even she wondered if resolve alone could heal wounds carved by prejudice. Naomi looked at the clock. 9:17 p.m. In just a few hours, when the court system opened, an official notice would appear, and the name Brent Calloway would be tied to a civil rights case. Meanwhile, back at Riverton Precinct, Calloway locked his locker with a self-satisfied grin, unaware that by morning, the station would fall silent as a courier walked in and laid a manila envelope on the duty desk. Under dim office light, it would wait there, a silent cliffhanger, ready to explode. The next morning, the Riverton precinct grew quiet as the door opened. Pale winter light slipped across the gray concrete floor and the tired faces of officers ending the night shift. The mail carrier stepped in, holding a sealed manila envelope. On the front, bold letters, Sergeant, Brent Calloway, confidential. It landed on the duty desk with a soft thud, heavy as a relic from the past. Conversations stalled. Curious eyes followed as Calloway tore the seal. Inside, the summons cut sharp as a blade. Civil Rights Court of Riverton. Plaintiff, Lieutenant Colonel Naomi Brooks. His chest tightened. The confident shell of a veteran sergeant collided with memories of old abuses he'd buried, and with the image of his own father losing a badge for the same sins. Silence thickened the air. Colleagues looked away, as if ghosts from the past had stepped into the room. Calloway forced a laugh, masking the flicker in his eyes. "Just some nonsense. Ain't goin' nowhere," he muttered, gripping the paper tighter than he meant to. Deep down, the question gnawed. Was his armor of authority finally cracking? Across town, morning light streamed into Naomi's office at Cedar Ridge. It struck her nameplate, worn from years of service, and lit the oak desk where her hands rested, fingers interlaced. Her gaze drifted across the base airfield, her mind torn between discipline's demand for calm and the memory of prejudice endured in uniform. Was silence really strength or surrender? Her phone buzzed. A text from attorney Asha Patel. "The summons has been delivered. The process is official." Naomi nodded once and set the phone down with steady fingers. Moments later, Malik Green entered, placing a steaming mug of coffee on her desk, a gesture born of long deployments together. "So, we're in it now," he said quietly. Naomi's smile was faint, her voice cool but resolute. "This isn't a game, Malik. This is discipline." Her eyes sharpened, torn between the hope of justice and the fear of escalating a fight that could shake more than one life. At Riverton, Calloway was called upstairs. The door to Captain Alan Whitaker's office shut with a heavy click. Curtains drawn, light gone. Whitaker leaned forward, voice low and deliberate. "Brent, you know what this is about?" Calloway crossed his arms, trying for nonchalance. "Some ticked-off driver. I followed the procedure." The words felt thin even as he spoke them. Whitaker dropped a file on the desk. "Procedure, if you say so. But like this?" He tapped a photo pulled from video stills. Naomi's face flooded with flashlight glare. Calloway's hand hovering over his weapon. Orders barked without cause. Brent had no answer. Whitaker's look was no longer that of an old friend. It was a warning. That evening, Naomi stayed late. On her desk lay a photograph of a fallen black soldier, killed by mistake, her silent reminder of why she would not back down. Two screens glowed, one replaying her phone recording, the other showing Calloway's bodycam footage Asha had secured. Naomi studied every frame, slowing, rewinding, noting each flick of his hand toward the holster, each tone of his voice, not to feed anger, to prepare, because she knew, in court, truth lived not in broad claims, but in the most minor, almost invisible details. Malik stood nearby, arms folded, concern etched on his face. "Ma'am, most folks would let this slide, especially against a long-timer cop." Naomi's voice never wavered. "And that's exactly why they keep doing it." Her eyes hardened, remembering the young recruits who still believed rank or insignia could shield them. She knew better. By the next day, whispers of the lawsuit spread through Riverton like a cold draft. Hallways hushed, greetings clipped short, eyes turned away. Calloway sat alone in the break room, staring into cold coffee. Pride didn't sit in his chest anymore. only a quiet, relentless question. If the truth comes out, what will I have left? From the corner, Officer Jenna Park glanced his way before looking back at her phone. That brief look was enough. He saw it. The crack in his image had already begun. At Cedar Ridge, Naomi opened a thick packet from Asha Patel. Inside lay the trial strategy, order of witnesses, chain of evidence, anticipated cross-exams. On the cover page, one line in bold, objective. Not just to win, but to set precedent. Naomi turned the pages slowly, her resolve steady, though the same inner tension whispered. Would this change the system, or just become her war? That night, alone in his apartment, Calloway pulled out a wooden box. Inside lay medals and commendations from his early years. He ran his fingers across them, trembling. The pride they once held was gone. The same question echoed again. If the truth comes out, what will I have left? The following morning, Aisha's call came. Naomi, the court has requested that both videos be shown side by side, yours and his body cam. Naomi's tone was calm and confident. Good. Let them see the same truth, from both angles. Silence lingered on the line. Then Asha added, Be ready. When those images hit the jury, there will be no room left for anyone to say, I didn't know. And back at Riverton, Captain Whitaker hung up a call from internal communications. We need a plan if the press shows up, he said quietly. His eyes drifted out the window, catching sight of Calloway walking through the lot, shoulders lowered. The storm hadn't arrived yet, but the wind had already shifted, blowing harder, colder. A cliffhanger in motion, waiting to break. The yellow envelope still sat on Calloway's desk, its edge sharp under the weak glow of the lamp, like a cut across the night. It looked less like paper and more like evidence from the past, returned to haunt him. He sat motionless, tapping a rhythm against a cold cup of coffee, torn between the hardened shell of a seasoned officer and the buried guilt of past abuses. He wondered if his reputation truly lived in the badge, or if it was nothing but a fragile illusion. At the exact moment, not far away, Naomi Brooks studied an identical envelope. Her gaze was different, not avoidance, but readiness. Her discipline demanded calm, yet the question lingered. Would justice be strong enough to heal the wounds of discrimination? Or was this simply another battle she had to fight alone? The next morning, Naomi arrived early. The base at Cedar Ridge stretched out under a gray sky, morning fog weaving through bare trees like a veil over truth. Riverton still lay under mist, the base so quiet her footsteps echoed down the cold concrete hallway. On her desk, she spread out the case files, sliding video clips and copies of reports into carefully marked folders. Her movements were slow but precise, like planning logistics in the field. A knock. Malik Green entered, 2 steaming cups in hand, vapor rising like faint comfort against the tension. Naomi, word is they're building Calloway's image, painting him as a dedicated officer, misunderstood, almost a martyr, he said, voice low, eyes betraying worry for the woman he respected like family. Naomi lifted the cup. Steam fogged her glasses for a moment. We don't need to tear down that story. We just need to present the truth and let it do the work, she said, steady but quietly asking herself if truth alone could change a system, or if this would end as a solitary fight. Meanwhile, Calloway answered a call from his defense attorney, an old contact in the local circuit. The man's voice carried the weight of warning. Brent, the video's bad. 2 angles, hers and your body cam. It shows you escalating without cause. We need to shape your testimony, stress procedure, your years of experience. Maybe suggest she looked under the influence. Calloway's grip tightened on the phone. His voice was rough. I followed the rules. She's federal, but that doesn't make her always right. But deep down, he felt the crack widening. Procedure wasn't armor if he had crossed the line, just as his father once did before losing the badge. The lawyer exhaled. The court won't care about federal or local. They care about evidence, and the evidence doesn't favor you. The words cut sharply. Calloway ended the call and stared out the window at patrol cars lined under weak sunlight. The badges gleamed, but for the first time, they looked foreign. His hand drifted to the one on his chest, asking silently if it could still protect him. That afternoon, Naomi met Asha Patel in her office. The room felt warmer than the cold precinct, but no less tense. The blinds were drawn, a whiteboard crowded with diagrams under fluorescent light. Asha opened her laptop, projecting both videos side by side. Naomi's phone footage, Calloway's Bodycam, every frame aligned, the hand on the holster, the clipped orders, the needless extension of the stop. The images told the story without a single word. This is our strength, Asha said firmly. One angle shows what you felt. The other shows what he did. It's undeniable. Naomi picked up a still image. Calloway standing at her door, hand hovering near his weapon. He thinks this is authority, but true authority doesn't sit on a badge. It lives in how you act when no one's watching. Her voice was steady, though inside she feared how easily her testimony could be twisted because of her race. Asha studied her. Naomi, are you sure you don't want to bring more emotion into this? You were threatened. A jury will feel that. Naomi shook her head. I'm not a victim, I'm an officer, and I'll testify that way. Her eyes flashed with resolve, though she wondered if calm composure alone could convince those who had never lived her reality. Asha smiled softly. That's why we'll win. Your honor isn't stitched on your uniform. It's in every choice you make. She slid a folder aside, and inside Naomi glimpsed an old letter from her father, once wronged by abuse of power himself, teaching her that justice was a legacy for those who came after. Back at Riverton, Calloway was summoned again to Whitaker's office. This time the captain didn't sit. He stood, voice heavy. Brent, this isn't internal anymore. It's spreading. If this goes south, it's not just you. The whole precinct takes the hit. Calloway crossed his arms, feigning confidence. I'll win. I'm always right. His eyes, though, slipped away. Whitaker sighed. Right or wrong isn't yours to declare. The court will, and with this evidence, you'd better be ready for the worst. The words landed like a weight. Calloway left with a lead in his step. In the days that followed, Naomi balanced base logistics with trial prep. She drilled her testimony like military training. Malik played the questioner, voice sharp, while she answered clean, concise, without wasted words. Calloway prepared differently, mock sessions with his lawyers, rehearsing confidence. But every time the question came, if you'd known she was a lieutenant colonel, would you have acted differently? He faltered, the pause betraying him, haunted by a past he'd buried. 3 days before the trial, Naomi received a short message from a colleague in the military police. We'll be there. She knew it wasn't just personal support. It was a message to the system that honor can't lean on titles or rank, only on actions. And in that moment, she imagined young recruits watching, eyes filled with respect. That evening, Naomi stood alone outside the base. The night wind cut through her coat, fingers of cold reminding her of battlefields where survival hinged on calm and the right call. This too was a battlefield, only now her weapon was evidence, and her shield was truth. She wondered if justice could truly heal, or if this were just another war she'd have to fight. In Riverton, Calloway returned home late. His apartment was dark, the only light spilling from the kitchen. He poured a glass of whiskey, then left it untouched. Instead, he pulled out an old wooden box filled with photos from the day he first pinned on his badge. His hands trembled as he touched them. Back then, his eyes were bright with confidence. In the mirror now, he saw only a man trying to hold on to that image. His phone buzzed, a text from his lawyer. "Be ready. Day 1 will be rough." He set it down, the unease clinging. The untouched glass reflected his face under dim light, as if to remind him what was already fading. The next morning, Asha sent Naomi the final outline. The last line of the opening statement read, "Honor doesn't live on a badge. It lives in how you use it." Naomi read it once, then typed a single word back. Agreed. The trial loomed. Riverton bustled as if nothing had changed. Yet in 2 separate rooms, 2 people knew. Once the courtroom doors closed, rank and title would vanish. Only one thing would remain: truth. And as Naomi folded the uniform she would wear to court, her phone buzzed with an urgent message from Asha, one that could alter their entire strategy in the final hours before the gavel fell. Naomi's phone screen lit up under the dim glow of her desk lamp. The cold light from the device cut through the darkness of her office at Cedar Ridge Joint Base, like a secret dragged out of the past. The urgent text from Asha Patel was brief. "We just received the full Bodycam footage, 2 minutes longer than the version filed." Naomi read it twice, gripping the phone tighter, her discipline fighting with the old memory of evidence buried on distant battlefields. 2 extra minutes. Would it turn the case, or just cut the wound of prejudice deeper? She called Asha immediately, voice steady, like giving orders in a logistics line. "I've got it. Where did the extra footage come from?" Asha's reply was calm but sharp, the tone of a seasoned lawyer. "Naomi, it didn't come from the police. It was leaked to me. And it shows Calloway approaching your vehicle from the left side, before turning on his flashlight. No signs of a violation at all. He even said something." She paused, voice dropping. "Let's see who we've got tonight." Naomi's grip tightened further, her breath deep. "We'll use it," she said firmly, though inside she wondered if those words were just a casual line, or the echo of bias she'd seen cost her comrades their lives. Her heart pounded with the rhythm of a ticking clock. The morning of the trial broke gray over Riverton, clouds heavy as a curtain over justice. Inside the courthouse, the benches and wood-paneled walls glowed under cold fluorescent light. People filed into the gallery with a mix of curiosity and unease. Few reporters, but enough flashes cracked the dim lobby when Naomi stepped out of her car. The cameras sliced the air like lightning, stirring the question she carried. Would her calm discipline hold against doubts cast on her skin? She wore a full uniform. Nameplate gleamed. Ribbons and insignia were lined up in order. Her face, though, betrayed nothing. No performance, no pride, just the quiet steadiness of a soldier. Inside, conflict surged. Would truth alone pierce prejudice? Or was this just another fight she'd bear? At the defense table, Calloway sat stiff in a gray suit, hands clenched on the wood. When Naomi entered, his eyes flicked to her. For the first time, the old confidence faltered. Regret surfaced, tied to memories of power he'd once abused and hidden. The session opened with Judge Eleanor Whitcomb's gavel. Her voice carried weight in the silence. "Today, we'll review video evidence from both the plaintiff and the defendant." The words struck like a countdown. Asha rose, laptop connected to the court's screen. The transition from Naomi's composed face to the projected video was seamless. "Your Honor, this is footage from my client's phone." The view of the person stopped. The courtroom filled with sound. Naomi's steady voice asked why she was pulled over. Calloway's clipped reply, stripped of explanation. The flashlight was shining on her pale face. His hand was resting near his weapon, never easing. The jury leaned forward, silent. Asha continued, firm. And this is the defendant's bodycam footage, the full version, only just received. She emphasized the words. The screen shifted. Calloway sat in his cruiser, staring into the rear-view mirror. He smirked and muttered, "Let's see who we've got tonight," before switching on the lights, stepping out, and walking straight to Naomi's SUV. No weaving vehicle, no traffic violation, just a stop by cause. The silence was heavy. Jurors tilted forward, eyes fixed, as if to see deeper. Naomi's chest tightened. Would this truth heal, or only reopen every scar? Judge Whitcomb broke the quiet. "Sergeant Calloway, do you confirm this is your voice?" He shifted in his chair, throat dry. "Yes," he said, his fists clenching. The battle inside him was clear, between his faith in procedure and the realization that his own words had stripped away his armor. "And what does the phrase, 'Let's see who we've got tonight,' mean?" the judge pressed, her tone sharp as a blade. Calloway wet his lips. "Just a joke," he muttered bitterly, though the word joke rang hollow. Deep inside, he knew it wasn't humor. It was a crack in the mask he'd worn for years. Asha cut in fast, voice cutting clean. A joke, right before stopping a citizen with no clear violation. The gallery froze. Calloway stayed silent, the truth cornering him more than the lawyer ever could. Naomi was called to the stand. She sat upright, posture precise, gaze steady on the jury. Yet inside, tension burned. Between her longing for justice and the fear her testimony would be weighed not on her words, but on her race. Asha's voice softened, but stayed firm. "Lieutenant Colonel Brooks, when you heard that phrase, what did it mean to you?" Naomi's reply was measured, every word heavy. "I believed it meant my stop wasn't based on behavior, but on choice. And when power is used like a game of chance, no one is safe." Her voice carried the quiet weight of loss, echoing comrades gone. The courtroom was still. Jurors nodded slightly. The video stopped with a sharp click of the laptop. Lights returned, but the air had changed. The room had seen and heard what once lived only in dispute. Calloway sat frozen, eyes lowered, as if facing his own reflection in broken glass. Naomi stepped down from the witness chair. Her stride was steady, her face unreadable. But inside she still questioned whether justice could move a system, or only mark one more personal victory. From the back row, Malik gave a slight nod. Not celebration, but recognition. The momentum had shifted. Then Asha leaned close and whispered, "A new witness just reached out. Someone inside Riverton Precinct. And they said, 'This isn't the only case.'" The words struck like a promise of justice, or the hint of a trap waiting ahead. Naomi hadn't even processed Asha's whisper before the judge stepped down from the bench. Chairs scraped in slow rhythm, like the fading echoes of a long day in court. The sound thinned into silence, leaving behind tired faces and a heavy pause, like the calm of a storm that hadn't passed. Malik rose, subtly clearing a path for Naomi and Asha to slip into the narrow hallway. The fluorescent light struck the tiled floor in pale streaks, stirring Naomi's inner conflict. Discipline told her to stay composed. Yet memory reminded her how fragile justice could be when prejudice went unchallenged. As the heavy doors closed behind them, Asha pulled out her phone, fingers scrolling fast like flipping through secret files. She stopped, held the screen under the dim hallway light. The email was brief, without a subject line or formality. "I've seen it many times. This isn't an exception. If needed, I'll testify. JP, Naomi's eyes flashed. JP ? Asha nodded, voice calm but confident. Jenna Park. She was on shift with Calloway that night. The words fell like a reveal, carrying them from the sterile courthouse to a fogged cafe window just 3 blocks away. The glass, misted with cold weather, looked like a curtain over truth. Inside, they found Jenna in the back booth, collar pulled high, eyes darting around the room. Her hands clutched the coffee cup tight, torn between loyalty to her unit and the guilt of what she'd watched in silence. "Tell us everything," Asha said, calm but deliberate. Jenna inhaled deeply, voice edged with bitterness, but steady with resolve. "I can't stay quiet. I've seen Calloway pull people over without cause, again and again, mostly women, often black women. He liked testing his power. The night he stopped Naomi, I heard him on the radio say, 'Let's see who we've got tonight.' But it wasn't just that." She looked directly at Naomi, shame flickering. "I've reviewed Bodycam from other stops. Once, he kept someone on the roadside for 40 minutes because they looked at him the wrong way. Nobody in the precinct wanted to speak. Fear of transfers, fear of losing rank. That fear kept us quiet." Her voice cracked slightly, weighed down by memories, like watching her father endure abuse of power while she stayed silent. Naomi listened, face composed, though inside the images replayed. Calloway's hand on his weapon, 2 cameras capturing the same truth. She wondered if justice could ever heal wounds carved so deep, or if it only unearthed them again. "Would you be willing to testify?" Naomi asked, her tone even, but her eyes searching. Jenna swallowed, tightening her grip on the cup. "I know if I do, I'll have to leave Riverton, but I joined this force because I believed in the law. If I stay silent, I'm no different than them." Her voice trembled, but her gaze held firm, as if looking to Naomi for strength she couldn't yet claim for herself. Asha leaned in, steady. "If you agree, we'll petition the judge to admit your statement tomorrow. That makes you an official witness, with protection." She spoke like a promise. From Jenna's coat pocket, a corner of a family photo peeked out, faces of a black family, hinting at another past abuse she had buried, and why her silence had always carried weight. Jenna nodded, fingers locking together so tight her knuckles turned white, like signing an invisible contract. Fear and hope collided in her hands. That afternoon, as the court resumed under the sterile buzz of fluorescent light, Naomi kept silent about the new lead. Asha said nothing to reporters. Only Malik knew, watching the courtroom door the entire session with eyes that never drifted. Inside, Calloway's lawyer tried to shift ground. He spoke of police discretion, of duty to protect the public, but the morning's footage had left cracks too wide to seal. Each cross-exam cut deeper. Calloway dodged questions with clipped answers or lowered his voice to avoid the weight of truth. His fists stayed locked under the table, the battle inside him clear, clinging to procedure while fearing Jenna's testimony could unravel it all. Naomi sat still, eyes trained on every move like mapping a supply line in the field. Her silence pressed harder than words, drawing Calloway's glance. His eyes held regret now, a question in them. Could his image still be salvaged? By day's end, Judge Whitcomb's gavel dropped. Outside, Riverton was already dark, night falling like a curtain over the courthouse steps. Naomi exhaled, breath turning white in the cold. Before she could descend the stone stairs, Asha leaned close, whispering. Another witness just reached out from inside the precinct, and they said, "This isn't the only case." Jenna's earlier message had included a clip, old Bodycam footage of another stop, another abuse Calloway had hidden. Naomi froze for a moment, realizing this could be the ally she hadn't expected, or the trap waiting just ahead. Naomi stepped out of the Riverton County Civil Court as drizzle fell. Cold drops touched the shoulders of her uniform, sliding down like ink bleeding across white paper. The rain carried her back to desert storms from deployments long past, stirring the battlefield inside her where justice and prejudice collided. She hardly noticed the weather. Her mind replayed Asha Patel's final words. They didn't send everything. Discipline told her to breathe. Memory reminded her of evidence buried and forgotten. 2 missing minutes. Would they turn the case, or just deepen scars? That night, in the small rental near the courthouse, Asha opened her laptop under the dull glow of a desk lamp. The screen's blue light cast across her face and Naomi's, like a spotlight on secrets. In her inbox, an anonymous message appeared. No subject, no flourish, just one line. This part was never filed. Watch and decide. Naomi's fingers gripped the chair. Was this truth or bait? The file was heavy, over 300 megabytes. When it opened, the title read, Bodycam, raw file, nearly twice the length of the version already in court. Naomi and Asha leaned close, faces caught in flickering light. The first minutes matched what they knew. Calloway smirking, muttering, "Let's see who we've got tonight." But the unseen portion began after Naomi drove off, citation in hand. The camera shook as Calloway returned to his cruiser. He keyed the radio, chuckling. "Pulled a federal lady. Thought flashing her badge would make me back off." The silence cracked like glass. Another voice answered, uneasy. "You're at it again? Careful this time." Calloway cut him off, half joking, half serious. "Relax. I know how to keep the record clean." For Naomi and Asha, the words stabbed sharply. They revealed not instinct, but habit, a practiced awareness of abuse, and the confidence that it could be hidden. Naomi felt the same ache she'd carried on deployments, watching black soldiers dismissed or punished with no proof to defend them. Asha paused the video, eyes locked on Naomi. "This is gold, not just misconduct. It shows intent." He knew the line, and he crossed it anyway. Naomi's voice was low, steady. "We'll bring it. Once Jenna testifies, this will nail the picture shut." But deep inside, she wondered if even this truth could heal, or if it would only stir the ghosts again. The next morning, the courtroom was more crowded than ever. A local paper had whispered of a new witness, and the press swarmed the aisles. Winter sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting long beams across the polished floor, dividing the room like a line between justice and prejudice. Judge Eleanor Whitcomb's gavel struck, her tone crisp as command. "We'll begin with testimony from the supplemental witness, Officer Jenna Park." Jenna stepped forward. Her uniform was sharp, but her hands trembled as they touched the Bible. She gripped hard, torn between loyalty and conscience. Naomi, from the plaintiff's bench, gave her a steady look, like an older sister urging her forward. Inside, Naomi feared Jenna's words might still be twisted. Asha rose, her voice calm, sharp. "Officer Park, would you tell the court what you witnessed that night?" Jenna drew a breath. Her voice shook, then steadied. "I was on shift with Sergeant Calloway. I heard him on the radio say, 'Let's see who we've got tonight,' before the lights went on. And on the body cam, I saw him approach the vehicle. There was no clear violation. This wasn't the first. I've seen him do it to others, mostly women, often women of color. He liked control. He liked making them feel threatened." Her words fell heavy, the sound of conscience breaking the silence. The courtroom froze. Every breath was audible. Calloway's attorney shot up, voice sharp. "Officer Park, do you have evidence of these claims? or just your word? Asha's reply cut like a blade. Your Honor, we do. We moved to admit another Bodycam clip from 18 months ago. The screen lit under cold fluorescent light. A scene unfolded. Calloway stopped a young black woman late at night. The stop dragged on. His hand hovered near his holster, his voice harsh. You think you're special? The jury stirred, a few brows furrowing. Naomi felt the weight. Would this sway a system, or just mark one personal win? Calloway's head dropped. His hand squeezed a pen until his knuckles turned white. The mask cracked. His attorney asked for a recess to protect the client's rights. Judge Whitcomb's gavel struck clean. Denied. Proceed. Jenna finished her testimony with a single line, her voice steadier than ever. I stand here because a badge is not a license to forget responsibility. Silence filled the chamber. Naomi nodded, eyes glinting with respect. As Jenna stepped down, her glance met Naomi's. No words, but the exchange was clear. Another layer of shadow had been pulled away. Light from the tall windows caught Jenna's face, revealing a release long held back. During recess, Calloway trudged out without meeting a single eye. His steps dragged heavily, like carrying a weight he could no longer deny. Naomi knew it wasn't a strategy. It was the mark of a man seeing victory slip beyond reach. That afternoon, Asha leaned close, voice low but sure. They'll push to settle. I say we refuse. If we finish this, the verdict will speak to the whole system. Naomi's answer came without pause. We finish it. Outside, the rain had stopped, but gray clouds still hung. A young reporter hurried toward Naomi. Lieutenant Colonel, do you believe the new video will decide the case? Naomi paused, a small smile breaking through. I believe it confirms what I already knew that night, that truth was always there. Sometimes it just takes someone willing to bring it into the light. Her words lingered in the cold air. But in Asha's coat pocket, her phone buzzed again. The same anonymous sender. This time, only one line. I have something that will silence everyone. Attached was a photo of Calloway at an old training session, standing beside a black colleague who later died from abuse of power. Proof he had once witnessed injustice himself and chosen silence. Aisha's phone buzzed in her coat pocket, a sudden light cutting through the cold shadows of Riverton County Civil Court. Naomi stopped when she saw Asha's face tighten, her eyes flashing with wary caution. A soldier's discipline told her to stay calm, yet memories of evidence once buried at the base stirred inside her. She wondered if this message was the final piece, or just another trap. From that same anonymous address? Naomi asked quietly, her voice steady but sharp. Asha nodded, her finger swiping fast across the screen like she was flipping through a classified file. Just one line. This will shut everyone up, she read in a low, warning tone. She tapped the 300 megabyte attachment, and Naomi's grip tightened on the chair, torn between her hunger for justice and her fear that this video might shake the system to its core. They slipped into a side office, door shut, the white fluorescent light above glaring like a battlefield, where truth met prejudice. The video opened on Bodycam footage, time-stamped 2 weeks before Naomi's stop. The shot showed a suburban street in Riverton at dusk, street lamps casting sickly yellow light onto rain-soaked pavement. Calloway's voice cut in, half a joke, half a dare. Look at that car. Give me 5 minutes. The tone carried a hidden challenge, quickening the scene's pulse. He approached an old sedan. Inside sat a middle-aged man with dark skin, wearing a work uniform. No visible violation. Still, Calloway flicked on his lights. He claimed a dim tail light, forced the man to step out, spun him in circles with questions, and kept him in the freezing night for over 30 minutes, ending with a ticket for non-cooperation. The man's voice had stayed calm, respectful from start to finish. Naomi's chest tightened. She had seen this before, abuse of power against fellow service members of color. Asha paused the video, silence hanging heavy. Her eyes cut sharp as steel. Naomi, this is a pattern, not a one-off habit. If we present this, the whole just a misunderstanding defense collapses. Naomi nodded slowly, her voice low but steady. But it'll rock the ranks. Pressure will mount to bury it. Her gaze drifted to the rain streaking the window, drops falling like tears from the past. She wondered if this justice would heal, or only reopen old wounds. Malik, leaning against the desk, broke in. Stay silent and the cycle repeats. Expose it, it'll hurt. But it's necessary. His words carried the weight of battles he'd seen in uniform. Naomi's jaw tightened. Her eyes sparked with resolve. The next morning, Asha filed her second motion to admit new evidence. The defense erupted, calling it irrelevant history digging. But Judge Eleanor Whitcomb leaned forward, her voice crisp as command. If prior conduct shows a repeated pattern and intent, this court will allow it. Across the aisle, Calloway shifted, whispering anxiously to his lawyer, who only shook his head. When the video rolled, silence swept the courtroom. The repetition of his tactics, his tone, his disdain, it mirrored Naomi's case too perfectly. Jurors exchanged looks, as if the missing puzzle piece had clicked into place. Naomi sat still, no smile, no triumph. Inside, she wrestled with the clash between seeking justice and fearing backlash. Would this truth change the system, or just hand her a single victory? During recess, a local reporter caught up with Asha. Do you think this evidence tips the jury toward your client? Asha's reply was measured, sharp. I think it shows them one act isn't an accident. It's a symptom of a deeper culture of power. The reporter gave a slow nod, the weight of her words sinking in. That afternoon, Calloway was sworn in. The plaintiff's lawyer's voice rang clear. Sergeant, do you recall the incident on Elmwood Street 2 weeks ago when you stopped a worker? Calloway lowered his eyes. Yes. Can you name any actual traffic violation to justify that stop? The lawyer's tone cut like a blade. No, Calloway admitted, his voice trembling. His badge felt suddenly fragile in his hands. Then why stop him? Calloway hesitated. I felt something was off. Deep down, he knew the answer was as thin as glass. Your feelings are not a legal basis. Do you agree? Yes, he whispered. Pens scratched across jurors' notepads, the sound like a drumbeat echoing through the chamber. The room grew still. When the court adjourned, Naomi stepped into the chill outside. The cold air wrapped around her like a reminder. This fight wasn't finished. On the courthouse steps, Jenna waited. She smiled faintly. The picture's complete now. All that's left is for them to put it together. Naomi's eyes lingered on the building behind. They'll have to. There's no other choice. Her words sounded like a vow, though deep inside she wondered if this justice would mend old scars, or just mark a temporary win. That night, back at base, Malik handed her a small envelope. No sender. Inside was a single photo from a security camera, showing a high-ranking Riverton officer speaking privately with Calloway the day before his summons. On the back, 3 handwritten words, starts at the top. The message was chilling. Calloway wasn't the only one. Naomi realized she might be staring at something far larger, a network of silence and cover-ups. The question burned in her chest. Was she fighting one man's abuse? or an entire system built to protect it. Naomi turned the photograph in her hand, the hallway lights of Cedar Ridge Joint Base casting a pale glow over the slanted handwriting on the back. Start from the top. It felt like a whisper from the past, stirring the image of a buried secret rising back to life. Half her face sank into shadow, torn between the soldier's discipline that told her to stay calm and the ache of old injustices buried at the barracks. She wondered if this picture was the missing piece, or just another trap. Malik stood beside her, silent, his eyes clouded with unease. "Naomi, if this is real," he murmured, voice low like a warning, then Calloway wasn't acting alone. His words carried his own conflict, caught between loyalty to Naomi and fear of taking on the whole system. Naomi set the photo down on the table with a soft thud. Her voice was steady, resolute. "I know, and if someone's backing him, everything we've done so far is only the surface." The next morning, before court resumed, Asha received a scanned copy of the photo by email. She frowned as she zoomed in on the figure. A man in a black suit, not a uniform, but a face Naomi remembered from a town ceremony in Riverton. "That's Deputy Chief Harland," Asha confirmed, her voice low, like a vow of war. "If he's involved, this reaches leadership, which means the pressure to bury it will be immense." Naomi leaned back in her chair, eyes fixed on the ceiling as though she were mapping out a battle plan. "The question is, do we have proof he ordered it, or at least gave Calloway the green light?" That day's hearing opened with the defense's rebuttal. The courtroom was packed, cold fluorescent light pressing down, the jury seated in tense silence, as if waiting for a storm. Calloway's lawyer tried to dismiss the weight of the new video, insisting, "Every officer has the right to act on instinct." But his voice was thin, brittle, like glass about to crack. Asha stepped to the podium and clicked to a new slide, the very photo from the envelope. It sliced through the silence like a blade. "Your Honor," Asha began, her tone calm but sharp. "A senior figure in Riverton's police leadership met privately with the defendant before the subpoena was even issued. We are investigating whether this was a coordinated effort to lessen or conceal responsibility." The courtroom rippled with murmurs. Calloway glanced at his lawyer, fear flashing in his eyes. For the first time, he wondered if his badge could still protect him. Judge Whitcomb rapped her gavel, her voice firm. "Order. Ms. Patel, do you have additional evidence?" "Not complete yet," Asha replied evenly, "but we're in contact with an internal source." During recess, Jenna Park found Naomi in the hallway, tension and resolve etched across her face. "I know Harland. He's the type who hates embarrassment. If this photo leaks, he'll react," Jenna said quietly, her hands gripping her bag strap, torn between fear of losing her job and her belief in justice. Naomi nodded once, firm. "Then let him react. People who move too fast usually reveal more than they hide." That afternoon, as Naomi left the courthouse, a black SUV blocked her path. Streetlights gleamed against the tinted glass, casting a threatening shadow. The window slid down. Deputy Chief Harland sat inside, face like stone. "Lieutenant Brooks," he said, voice low and sharp, "some battles aren't about winning or losing. They're about whether you're still standing afterward." Naomi bent toward him, her gaze unflinching. "I've survived places where standing or falling was decided in seconds. You think I'm afraid of you?" Her words cut back like a knife, though her clenched fists betrayed the fear that the system itself might strike back. Harlan said nothing. He rolled the window up, and the SUV drove off, leaving behind the faint burn of exhaust, like a warning hanging in the night air. Later, in the makeshift office, Asha's phone rang. An anonymous voice whispered fast. Harland called the records. He ordered old Bodycam footage erased. I pulled a copy before they wiped it. What's in it? Asha pressed. Not just Calloway. Other officers too. And Harland's right there, directing them. Asha looked to Naomi and gave a single nod. We've got the final piece, she said, her tone like a declaration of war. But Naomi wondered, was this piece strong enough to topple an entire system, or just a fleeting victory? The following day, Asha requested to present urgent supplemental evidence. The big screen lit up with the new footage, peeling back the cover of secrecy. Harland appeared at the roadside, signaling to Calloway and another officer to pull over a car with no clear violation. His voice rang out, "Do it fast. Leave no trace." The courtroom froze. Jurors exchanged sharp looks. Naomi felt it in her bones. This was no longer about one man. It was about a culture of abuse protected from above. Calloway stared at the screen, his shoulders sagging like a statue crumbling. His fists clenched, torn between loyalty to the system and the dread that he was just a disposable link. Judge Whitcomb scribbled notes, then looked squarely at the defense table. "We are expanding this trial to consider systemic violations. Deputy Chief Harland will be summoned within 48 hours. Her words landed like a hammer blow against years of silence. As Naomi stepped out of the courthouse, the wind cut sharper, gray clouds gathering overhead like a reminder that the storm wasn't over. Malik hurried to her side. "Naomi, Harland won't stay quiet. We need to prepare for a showdown," he warned, his fear flickering beneath loyalty. Naomi tightened her grip on her bag strap, eyes fixed on the courthouse doors. Good. It's time people saw the whole picture. But deep down, she wondered if she truly had the strength to stand against an entire system. That night, Asha's phone buzzed on her desk. A new anonymous message glowed on the screen. "Harland isn't the only one. Tomorrow, the court will face a surprise." Attached was an old audio clip, Harland's voice. "Protect the team at all costs." The hint was clear. This wasn't just one man's abuse. It was a network, a larger conspiracy waiting to surface, leaving Naomi to wonder if she had just stepped into the most dangerous battlefield of her life. Morning broke in Riverton, with a rare touch of sunlight, yet the courthouse square still carried a heavy air. The old granite steps stretched wide, the pale light catching them like a fragile promise of justice. Naomi Brooks stepped out of the SUV, her uniform crisp, nameplate gleaming in the dawn. But inside, turmoil rose. Military discipline told her to stay calm, while memories of buried injustices on the base gnawed at her. Was today the day the truth finally surfaced, or just another battle in a long war? Beside her, Malik clutched the case files like a soldier holding a weapon. His eyes revealed tension, but also loyalty, a reminder of the black comrades who had once lost their lives to prejudice. Inside the courtroom, the jury sat in silence, their faces more somber than before. The cold fluorescent light framed them like a still shot, every brow furrowed in thought. Judge Eleanor Whitcomb struck her gavel, her voice clear as a command. "Today, the court will hear testimony from Deputy Chief Harland and review further evidence regarding Riverton's law enforcement culture." Her words sliced through the silence. Harland entered, his black suit sharply pressed, his tie the same shade as the gray clouds outside. He looked every bit the symbol of guarded power, yet his eyes avoided Naomi. The way his fists tightened betrayed the conflict within. Trust in a system built to protect him versus the fear that truth could unravel it all. Asha Patel stepped to the podium, her voice calm but cutting. "Mr. Harland, confirm for the record, are you the one in yesterday's video directing a traffic stop?" Harland drew a breath, his voice rough. Yes, but Asha cut in. Were you aware that the vehicle committed no traffic violation? Her words hit like an accusation. The room went still. I was, Harland admitted, his gaze shifting, unable to meet the jury's eyes. Then what was the purpose of the stop? Safety inspection, he muttered, the words fragile as glass. Safety inspection, or targeting the driver, Asha pressed. Silence fell again. Pens scratched across jury notebooks, each stroke a steady drumbeat of judgment. She advanced the slide. Photos from internal records lit the screen, one after another. At least 4 nearly identical incidents within a year, Harland or Calloway always involved. The jurors traded uneasy glances. Do you deny this shows a pattern of abuse? Asha asked, her tone like a challenge thrown. Harland whispered, I call it maintaining order. But the answer rang hollow, a wound laid bare, not just his, but the system's. Naomi's fists tightened on her lap, her heart torn between faith in justice and fear that the system would again shield itself. When Harland stepped down, the judge nodded for Asha to continue. Your Honor, before closing, we present one final video provided by an anonymous source who has cooperated throughout this trial. The lights dimmed. The big screen flared, becoming a battlefield of truth against denial. A closed meeting room in Riverton's precinct appeared. Harland at the head, Calloway, and 2 officers beside him. Harland's voice carried sharp and clear. We don't want trouble. If needed, make sure the files look right. Nothing leaves this room. One officer asked, What if we're recorded? Harland's reply chilled the room. Handle it before anyone else sees it. No one in court dared to breathe. The video sliced open an unwritten policy, passed down and enforced. Naomi felt it hit deep, stirring memories of comrades lost to the same silent rules. She was called to the witness stand one last time. Sitting upright, gaze steady on the jury, she faced Asha's final question. If you could send one message from this case, what would it be? Naomi's voice was calm, but each word carried weight. That power isn't meant to protect itself. It exists to protect the people. When power turns its back on that duty, silence only feeds abuse. I'm not here because I wanted to win a lawsuit. I'm here to say no one, not a soldier, not a badge, stands above the law. The courtroom held its breath, her words echoing like a remembered field order. 3 hours later, the jury returned. The room stretched taut as a bowstring. Judge Whitcomb read the verdict, each word deliberate. We, the jury, find defendant Brent Calloway violated the plaintiff's constitutional rights and recommend damages of $50,000. We also refer evidence to the Department of Justice for investigation into systemic violations within the Riverton Police Department. The words cracked like a hammer breaking through stone. No cheers followed, no applause, only a wave of silence spreading outward. Sunlight touched Naomi's face, showing release without triumph. Harland left without a word, his eyes dark as shattered stone. Calloway strolled, shoulders bent, as though leaving part of his life behind. Naomi rose, nodded to the jury. Malik offered her coat. Asha gave a faint smile. You did what many thought impossible, she said. Naomi shook her head. We've only just begun. Her voice carried like a promise, the inner conflict dissolving as she realized this justice wasn't just for her. It was for generations to come. Outside, sunlight stretched across the courthouse steps. A group of recruits from Cedar Ridge Joint Base stood waiting, faces young and solemn, eyes filled with respect. Naomi didn't salute. She simply told them, Remember, honor isn't stitched on your shoulders. It's in how you use it. The words, born of fallen comrades, left them silent in thought. That evening, back at base, Naomi hung her uniform on its rack, staring at it for a long while before switching off the light. In the quiet, trial memories mingled with the sound of engines, flashlights in the dark, and the phrase that had carried her here, "Honor isn't on your shoulders." On her desk, the photo from the anonymous envelope still lay beside a fresh note. "Thank you for not staying silent." A small dried sprig of lavender rested with it. The source, a fellow soldier from her past, reminded her that truth always finds light, kept alive by steadfast courage. As the courtroom doors slowly closed, the echo of the verdict lingered like a distant bell in the night. There was no cheering, only a quiet wave moving across solemn faces. Calloway with his head bowed, Naomi standing tall, her coat draped over her shoulders like a hint of warmth after a long storm. Outside on the courthouse steps, a thin stream of sunlight touched the stone. A group of young recruits paused, realizing that justice today wasn't loud or showy, but carried enough weight to change a life. I believe in a simple truth. When you plant honesty, you harvest peace. When you sow respect, you reap dignity. We can be strong without being cruel, firm while still choosing to forgive, because forgiveness doesn't erase wrongdoing, it frees the soul. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. If this story moved you, share it so more seeds of kindness can grow. Subscribe, like, and leave a comment, so together we can spread a message against discrimination and in honor of human dignity. Next week, we'll journey into another story, quiet yet powerful. And before the screen fades, ask yourself, what do you see in that photograph, beside the note with its simple words? And what reminder would you leave for your own heart